how and what we can cope up the sources to spend plan expenditure or non-plan expenditure, revenue expenditure, capital expenditure, etc. For that, we have addition topic, that is nature, sources, classification, effects, and redemption of the public debt. In this, first, we are going to have classification of expenditure, principles of expenditure, determinants of the public expenditure. Our private expenditure is different from public expenditure. Here, most of the economies, countries after 16th century, sorry, not 16th, 19th century, most of the economies try to achieve social welfare of the economy. In that connection, public expenditure increased and expanding state activities. Earlier, that is before 19th century, the state activity, that is government activity, is limited to law and order. But now, the government intervening in almost all the economic activities to achieve social welfare of the people. Here, the public expenditure, what are the different types? How we can classify? In what way we are determining? That we are going to discuss first. Then only we discuss about the public debt. I hope yesterday, which we were discussed, you understood, because the continuation from the yesterday class, that is in the previous class. The purpose of the public expenditure topic to know the origin and meaning of the public expenditure. As a student, we should know classification of public expenditure. Not only that, public expenditure on what law, on what principle, on what canons the public expenditure we are having on the various activities, and how we are determining the public expenditure, and what the public expenditure impact, effect. That also we should know as a student of economics. We know very well public expenditure definitely gives positive impact on the production, positive impact on the equitable distribution, positive effect on the economic stability, positive effect on the economic growth, economic development, not only that, even sustainable development also. So, my dear children, public expenditure means the expenditure is incurred by the public authorities. Who are the public authorities? That is central government, state government, even local government. Why these public authorities are going to spend? To promote economic and social welfare of the citizens and to fulfill the collective needs of the citizens. Public expenditure day by day increasing, not only in our India, even in other nations too. The 19th century, public expenditure got so much of importance. During the 20th century, developmental functions were done by state, that is government, for the social matters. Public expenditure is increased. Public expenditure increased in its nature, volume, and it became a very important part of everybody's economic life. Public expenditure, what it want to achieve, to maximize index of the social welfare. Public expenditure play very important role. Earlier, Wagner or Musgrave, these economists uh, given a different version compared to the present. For example, the Wagner, the German economist, in favor of increasing the social activities, state activities. Even Musgrave also advocated about the public expenditure. But that time, to stabilize the economic activities, to maintain land order, and limiting in the commercial activities. But during the 20th century, the public's expenditure now it is becoming a important role in our life. For that, the public expenditure got so much of importance. Wagner, public expenditure, why it is increases according to him for the development or war purpose or to come out of from the depression or inflation or even nature calamities like earthquake or what you say war or if anything happens also. But in the modern economies, not only for those activities, unlimited economic activities are taken up by the state government, central government, local government for the welfare of the nation. The public expenditure can be classified in a different way, depends on its importance. Different economists given different way of classification. Sutlej, during the 19th century, he classified based on its purpose or its service. That is, test of good classification. That classification must be scientific and unambiguous. So here, good classification should satisfy at least two tests. The classification done by different economists, okay, but on what basis they are classifying the public expenditure? That's supposed to clear the test of the two things. That is, first one is the good classification should satisfy at least two tests. One is mutually exclusive. Secondly, classification should attribute object classified, means it's supposed to be scientific and sensible. The basis, this is what R.H. Bhargave told the classification supposed to be on that. But another Dalton, J.S. Mill, Nicholson, they given the classification supposed to be on the basis of another way, that is basis on public expenditure which confers a special benefit to the certain people. That is one. Another point is public expenditure which benefits equal to all. The public expenditure benefiting people and entire community as well. Public expenditure that specially benefits some individuals. So it is for community for all or for individuals or certain group. That should be known, first of all. Then, based on that classification supposed to be. But whereas Bastable and Adam Smith, these two economists, classification, they told in the different way. The classification must be in this way. That is expenditure on the protective services. For example, expenditure on defense, arms and ammunition, police, administration, justice, jails. This is one. Another function is the commercial activities, especially infrastructure. That is maybe social infrastructure or economic infrastructure, rail, road, highways, which are meant for the public interest. And another way, the government expenditure supposed to be, that is developmental, that is on the education, health, public utility facility, that is safety, drinking water, drainage, or lighting, etc. So in this way, the classification is supposed to be done according to Adam Smith. Another classification basis on the revenue. The classification of public expenditure supposed to be on the basis of revenue. According to Nicholson, what he said, 4 categories. That is expenditure without any direct return. That is one expenditure, especially which we spent on the poor people for the relief purpose. It is direct benefit to that poor people. And another based on expenditure without direct return. That expenditure may be on the education and health. It is not going to give direct return to us, but indirectly it will give, well, healthy person can more work than the ill healthy. Educated, skilled, able will work more hours than the illiterate, uneducated, unskilled. That's why indirectly it will contribute, but not directly. Means which we are spending on the education and health. Also, one, that expenditure not giving direct return to us, but it is going to give in future. Then another expenditure based on partial direct return. For example, on expenditure if you done on the transport or energy, directly it will give return. But whereas which you are spending on the education, it won't give. But without education, how the skilled people we get, professionals how we will get, how they can perform their occupation or profession. So that is maybe indictment. That's why only it is partial. That is then expenditure full return with profit. You know well. That is maybe post office service, telegraph service, gas service, banking service, insurance service, financial services, which you spent on all these, that expenditure we get in return with more profit or profit. This is another classification which was suggested by F.S. Nicholson. Another classification according to J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill, optional expenditure, obligatory expenditure. Optional expenditure and obligatory expenditure. According to Dalton, that is purchase price and grants. According to means distinction between the direct and indirect grants are grant may be said to be direct benefit, but whereas indirect grant later on we may get. Roster classification is 3 categories: necessary expenditure, useful expenditure, superfluous expenditure. That superfluous expenditure, na, that is to fulfill the losses, that expenditure, like that. Then whereas AC PIGU classified public expenditure into two parts. That is transferable expenditure, non-transferable expenditure. I hope, is it audible? Is it audible, my dear children? Right. The transfer expenditure made the payment of interest on the government debt, pension, sickness benefit. This is transferable expenditure. Non-transferable expenditure, money payments made to the people, either gratuity or purchase of existing property rights, expenditure on the maintenance of building, etc. So in this way, PIGU classified into two, that is transferable expenditure, non-transferable public expenditure. Mehta classified according to his version two types: constant expenditure, variable expenditure. As a student of economics, we used to tell fixed cost, variable cost together will become total cost. In such a way, he classified that is constant expenditure. It will continue forever. And another one is variable expenditure. So in this way, different people given different way of classification. And the public expenditure should follow some rules and regulations, or you can say principles. Those are called canons of public expenditure. A.G. Butler, what he says that some guidelines to be followed while going for the public expenditure, which is spent by the central government or state government or local government. What he said, the public expenditure must and should promote the welfare of the society. Public expenditure must and should promote the welfare of the society. That is the first one. This is the first canon. And second canon or principle is the public expenditure should stimulate social welfare, economic growth, economic development, sustainable development. This is supposed to be stimulated by the public expenditure. What he said, another principle is that these funds are properly utilized for conducting social welfare or not. That is also one of the principles to be followed while going for the public expenditure. Professor Sirras, he made a beautiful principles or canons for the public expenditure. Those are, first is benefit. I mean, it doesn't mean that capitalist way benefit. Here, social benefit, social advantage. Another one is canon of economy, means judicious, not expensive, not costly. That expenditure is supposed to be. It should not be more burden to the government. Another one is canon of sanction, public expenditure without proper sanctioning authority, you should not go for. That's why, in the budget, first they introduce the budget in the Lok Sabha and they discuss later what the first reading, second reading, third reading. After that only assent given by the President of India, then only it will come into the force from 1st April, which continue up to the 31st March, which we call it as a financial year. Means in that only we are going to have a sanctioning. Before spending itself, the sanctioning supposed to be there by the concerned authorities. That is another principle for going for public expenditure. This is another principle or canon. Canon of surplus. Government always should not be the deficit position. It's supposed to be in the surplus. If not, at least in the balanced. if it is always deficit, and it leads to the public debt that we know very well. That's why only the canon of surplus is also one of the principle to be followed, canon to be followed while going for the public expenditure. Another canon or principle, according to Dalton, that is elasticity. The government should be flexible rather than the rigid. Another one is the public expenditure supposed to be productivity. Unproductive expenditure supposed to be cut down. The productive expenditure supposed to be more. Developmental expenditure supposed to be. And another one is the whichever the government or public expenditure is going on, that's supposed to bring equitable distribution among the rich and poor to achieve the social welfare. And here, this public expenditure supposed to be neutrality. That is another canon of the public expenditure. Means it should not adversely affect any group or community or citizen. In the production or distribution or even in the exchange, anyway, it's supposed to not to be disturbed or adversely affect. Such type of public expenditure supposed to be. The certainty clearly government, public supposed to know on what purpose, where and when and how the public expenditure is going to be taken place. The program should be mentioned, special program or regular program. You know very well, Manegra, that is one program to generate employment, at least 100 working days for the rural youth. That program is mentioned according the budget allocation will be there. So that's why the special program or previous program that's supposed to be planned. But while spending also we should see the performance. If it is a poor performance, why to spend all? So if it is giving good result, good performance, that public expenditure to be continued. So my dear friends, now the public expenditure, how it can be classified. Different economists opined in a different way the classification of the public expenditure. But in nutshell, we can say in general, based on productivity, that is developmental, non-developmental expenditure, based on the programs and all, that is planned and non-planned expenditure, based on the liability and the creation of asset, that is capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. So while we are going for the public expenditure, which is done by central government or state government or local government, it's supposed to follow some principles, canons of public expenditure, which we noted now. Now, another one is known to us, that is, what are the determinants going to decide public expenditure? Determinants of public expenditure. The first is welfare state. In the modern times, most of the countries, most of the economies are welfare. Economies are welfare state. To attain the same, it's supposed to perform the welfare functions and to provide facilities to the public like education, health, not in the capitalistic view or the communist view. It's supposed to be democratic view. And not only that, to secure the stability, to avoid the economic fluctuations. That is the first welfare state, that is the first determinant of the public expenditure. Second determinant of the public expenditure is industrial development. In those days, most of the economies are depend on only primary activities, agriculture and agricultural allied activities. Whereas to achieve the rapid development, every economy started increasing importance for the industrialization because certain productivity, formal employment, regular employment is possible. Rapid acceleration of growth is also possible, which was proved by most of the European nations. That's why everybody want to go for industrial development. For that, so much of budget allocation, so much of expenditure is required to install such a large, long gestation period projects only can done by the government. That we know very well. That industrial development is the another determinant of the public expenditure. And not only that, another determinant is control on prices. If price trends are coming down and down, also not good for the economy. Increasing and increasing, that is inflation, that is also not good for the economy. Price rise, price fall, okay, but inflation is serious. That too, various types of inflation we know very well. That is creeping, walking, jumping, hyperinflation, such type of horrible to bear by the large section of the society. So that another determinant of the public expenditure is controlling the prices according to requirement. When we sometimes we may control the price, sometimes we may support the price also. Another determinant is agricultural development because for us, food grains we get from the agriculture only. That's why industrial development is also one of the determinant of the public expenditure. Earlier, agriculture is different, present is different. Mechanization of agriculture. Not only that, commercialization of agriculture. All these come up. So for that, government is supposed to spend according to requirement. For example, to support the farmer, to uplift the agriculture, or to advertise that like a what to say rotation cropping, multiple cropping, double cropping, or providing the machinery tools to the agriculturists, some amount should be spent by the government, state or central or local. So that's why it is also one of the determinant. Agriculture, industrial, not only this, even for the urbanization, most of the people from the villages migrating to towns, that is urban area, in search of employment or in search of livelihood or in to get the better life. So for that urbanization, you cannot stop the migrants who are coming from the rural area. When they are coming within the country, everybody having a right to move one place to another place. No can con. So for that, when they are coming, proper facility is supposed to be provided. Maybe drainage, sanitation, safety drinking water, roads and lights. All these are part of urbanization. For that also spending is required. So urbanization is also becoming one of the determinant in the public expenditure. In addition to that, social security measures also one of the determinant of the public expenditure. Not only social security measures, what are social security measures you may ask? You know very well. unemployment rules, pension to the widows, single person, old aged person, sick persons, accident reliefs, dependent benefits, housing facilities, free education facility, free medical facility, free transport. All these are a part of social security measure. So further, that is also become one of the determinant in the public expenditure. Another one is from the beginning it is there, that is arms and ammunition, defense, war, military expenditure also one of the determinant in the public expenditure. That you know well, right? Growth of population, one of the determinant of the public expenditure, because to provide the facility to the increasing population, transport and communication, to adopt the planning for the rural development schemes, for the administration, to provide relief and rehabilitation, the public expenditure is required. So all these are the determinants of the public expenditure. As of now, what we come to know, classification of public expenditure, which classification done by different economists based on various functions. Second topic we were discussed about canons of public expenditure, means principles, on which principles. Then another now latest topic is that is a determinants of public expenditure, which are going to determine this public expenditure. That what we now noted and discussed. Then now we are going to have another topic, my dear friends, that is what are the effects of public expenditure. The effects of public expenditure vary over a time. Public expenditure needs looked indispensable physical instrument securing economic stability and social welfare also. Public expenditure became compulsory for the governments. Public expenditure affect in which way on the production? Effects of public expenditure on production. Yes, ability to work. Production productivity definitely increases because of the public expenditure. Means positive effect will be there. The ability of the work will increase. The ability of the saving also increase. The ability of the investment also increase. Public expenditure can push up saving, push up efficiency of the worker, push up the purchasing power of the people. It are not only that, it also provide education facility, employment benefit, medical benefit, housing facility, which indirectly promote the ability of the work of the people and saving nature in them. The common people definitely get encouraged to go for investment, means the expenditure on production in such a way it positively affects. On the willingness to work, save and interest, public expenditure, positive effect is there, sometimes negative effect also may be there, but it is very negligible. The public expenditure provide the social security. and it provides a greater opportunities, the bridge between rich and poor, and diversification of economic resources will be there. Public expenditure diverts resources from private to the public use in many ways. Example, government expenditure on the defense, police, civil administration, divert the resource from private sector to the public sector. Public expenditure reduces the wastage. Public expenditure, sometimes we call it as unproductive, but indirectly we are getting the secured for our economy and the nation. The public expenditure on the defense, police, justice also required. Somebody said it may adversely affect on the production. No. When we are in the safe and secured position only, we can go for. That's why. So the public expenditure definitely it encourages the investment, saving, willingness to work, and employment generation. All this. Dalton pointed out how it is going to increase the productive power and socially desirable, that many people will come for work. Employment generation is possible. Expenditure on education, training, research, invention, information makes human power, human capital, human resource, that is human capital, that is able, capable, willing, skilled, educated, working people. In other sense, workforce, labor force is possible. So public expenditure on health, public expenditure on social security schemes, public expenditure on the transport, irrigation, forestation, land reclamation, all these will improve the production, investment, saving, employment, etc. The public expenditure also affect on the distribution. It is the most powerful instrument actually. Collecting from the rich people, distributing to the poor people through the public expenditure only. Redistribution possible in the income and wealth. Equitable distribution is possible. Of course, effects are maybe progressive, maybe proportional, sometimes maybe regressive also. So many merits are there. Of course, negligible demerits also there. But one way we can say that the positive effect on the economic stability, effect of public expenditure on the economic stability during the deflation or inflation, it helps a lot. During the depression, government spends to generate the employment and output and come out from that vicious circle. The public expenditure may be controlled during the inflation and imposes the more taxes. Not only that, in the economic development and economic growth, its effect is in a positive way, constructive way. That's why the public expenditure effects are good, so that we can continue it. This what we have the first topic in the public expenditure topic, and another one is today's, which we are going to have it, that is public debt. In this, We are going to have sources of public debt, that is borrowing from individuals, borrowing from non-banking financial institutions, borrowing from commercial banks, borrowing from external, maybe IMF, IBRD, Asian Development Bank, World Bank, etc. All these are the different sources of public debt. Means borrowing from the other to meet out the public expenditure. Public debt can be classified in the different way. The public debt, internal public debt and external. Internal means within the country. External means from other country. Individually from the different country or World Bank, IMF, etc. This public debt, that borrowing may be two types. Another classification, that is productive and unproductive debt. We take a loan for the unproductive purpose, which is not going to produce anything in return. Another classification is redeemable and irredeemable. The taken borrowing, but again we can recollect it or not, and again we can cope up. That is redeemable. If we are not able to recoup that expenditure or debt, that is irredeemable. Another one classification of the public debt is permanent debt, floating debt. Permanent means regularly it is funded. Another one is unfunded. Okay, this is like different ways of classification of the debt, my dear children. One more thing we want to have here, the effects of the public debt. Public debt, in which way effect on the consumption? Positive effect is there, negative effect is also there. Public debt effect on the liquidity. Positive is there, negative also there. Public debt, positive effect on the production, negligible, negative impact on the production. The public debt effect also distribution. If distribution is equitable, justifiable, and for the equitable distribution, then it is positive. If not, not like that. Is it going to affect the private sector? If it is the case, definitely it will become a negative one only. In fact, the public debt burden, present generation is taking borrowing loans, but who will repay that debt burden within the country? One pocket to another pocket. One country to another country means our resources will flow to their economy. That's why the debt burden supposed to be measured. Is it going to be short term or long term? Or in which way it is going to be? We supposed to be measured. Public debt, advantages are there, disadvantages are there. But the thing is, we should not be in the debt trap. That which we saw during the 1990s, because of which Dr. Manmohan Singh, Finance Minister, Honorable Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao introduced new economic reforms since 1991. That is liberalization, privatization, globalization. It attracted the foreign investment, portfolio investment, and direct investment also, FDI and FFI. So to come out from that trap, they did that such type of economic reforms according to that times situation. The debt is not good. But what we can do? Many governments are forced to borrow from the different sources to finance public expenditure. maybe developmental expenditure, non-developmental expenditure, planned or non-planned expenditure, revenue or capital expenditure. To meet out these requirements, to fulfill the deficits, government are borrowing from internally, that is from the individual financial institution, commercial banks, or even the Reserve Bank of India. If not external, that is maybe from the NRIs or from the portfolio investment or foreign direct investment, or you can say foreign governments also giving the loan. This borrowings not good, but the situation is compelling us to go for such a type of debt. Debt burden is more on us. We know well. Total debt divided by national income. If you see, so much debt service ratio, how repaying the public debt by national income. We are paying less. We are taking bigger loan to repay the smaller loan with interest. When you see that cost profit ratio, we are not in a good position, but we are continuing, especially our country. So then we may say, borrowing become inevitable, okay, debt, but how to repay it? What methods? One is collecting the more tax and repaying, and refunding and paying, conversion of loans. We are taking now personal loan, converting it to the home loan, or home loan is converting to someone, like that conversion. Or capital A, that is property tax on the properties in that way, or through the budget surplus. Otherwise, we cannot. But another way somebody is telling, but it is not correct. Russia, when became a USSR, they told them, you don't want to repay your loans. That is not a way of evading the debt payment for the external debt. Even within the economy also, internal loans also, we should not be. Only thing is the debt burden should be decreased. The nation income supposed to be increased, and the debt burden supposed to be decreased by taking the loans very less. The internal sources supposed to be increased. Otherwise, we may be put into the debt trap. The debt trap means, you know very well, we are unable to come out from that debt obligations, payments. That is very dangerous situation. To that situation we faced during the 1990s. Anyway, now we come out by implementing the new economic reforms since 1991, which was introduced by these two great personalities of our India, that is Dr. Manmohan Singh, Finance Minister, and Bharat Ratna P.V. Narasimha Rao. Now we are not in the debt trap. Now we are in the surplus, in the, what you say, in every sense. The externally or internally we became a strong because of those two people who laid a great milestone by introducing liberalization, privatization, and globalization for that situation. But it's presently it continue such situations not good for the social welfare. But we are not the person to decide. The government's only supposed to think and follow and to achieve the social welfare and social well-being of the all the people. So let us hope for the best in future. At least we will come up with positive remark about the public expenditure and public debt. My dear children, today we could cover very important topics, that is public expenditure classification, public expenditure principles, public expenditure determinants, public expenditure effects. That is one. Another one is public debt nature, public debt sources, public debt classification, public debt effects, etc. All these we could able to cover today uh, in the block number 2, that is public expenditure and public debt, which is very important topic in the public finance and international economics second year semester 4 BA economics. Yesterday and today connectivity is there. Yesterday's one is public finance and public revenue, and today one is public expenditure and public debt. So both are interrelated. That's why we continue this topic today itself. I hope which I explained to you, you might be understood. Well, if you have any queries, you are welcome to ask in this today's topic or earlier topic. Also, you are welcome to get clear your doubts. Am I audible? If you have any query or doubt in the today's topic, you are welcome to ask. This time is meant for you because it's not supposed to be one way. It's supposed to be two ways. When you understand, uh, we can continue with another topic and a new topic. And you should get clear all your doubts before going for the examination. So your preparation is required in such a way that whatever the question comes from this topic, maybe short question or long question, you're supposed to present in such a way that in the befitting manner to get maximum mark from this topic. Wish you all the best. Thank you one and all. If you have anything, even you are welcome to ask even now also. Still we have a time. Go through the yesterday's topic and today's